Foundation, this year dedicated to the artificial intelligence and human rights, finding the right balance between innovation and responsibility. Once again, we're organizing this conference in a hybrid format as to provide participants from the region, but also beyond, with the opportunity to follow the sessions from any location via Zoom and, of course, Facebook Live, as well as in person here in Skopje. This year's edition to the e-Society conference is organized in synergy with the projects Western Balkan Anti-Disinformation Hub, financed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and the project Good Governance in Cybersecurity in the Western Balkans, implemented by DCAF, Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance, and financed by the UK government's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Our dear media supporters, as each year, covering the conference are news agency Meta.mk, Portalp, and Truth Meter. Before we officially start off the conference, just a couple of housekeeping rules so that we have a better experience. Translation on Zoom is provided in English, Macedonian, and Albanian language. And of course, for the participants present here, you have headphones on your right. Please have in mind that this event is being recorded, live streamed online, and of course, photographed. And as the conference is an interactive event, we warmly encourage participants to pose their questions to the speakers. Those present in the venue can just raise their hand, upon which you will get a microphone, while those on Zoom can simply write on chat. Now, for the past 19 years, Metamorphosis Foundation has dedicated itself to supporting and enabling citizen participation, engagement, and of course, government accountability, but a particular emphasis on the information technology and defending human rights and dignities, as in the online sphere, also live. In this process for advocating for human rights online, we see it as essential to help the communities cope with this enormous and everlasting change arising from the growing influence of new technologies. Artificial intelligence as such opens unprecedented opportunities for innovation in various sectors, from health to education, to transportation and to entertainment. But however, this rapid development and advancement of technology also raises key questions about how to protect the basic human rights and dignities. Achieving the right balance between innovation and accountability is really essential to ensuring a digital landscape that includes addressing issues such as privacy, bias, discrimination, and the ethical use of artificial intelligence. As AI continues to shape our world, the need to protect human rights without stifling technological progress becomes the greatest challenge in our society. This is why Metamorphosis Foundation is forming an AI coalition of like-minded civic society organizations, academia, businesses, and activists who share joint concerns about the protection of internet freedoms and digital human rights. And this is precisely why this year we decided to shape this year's edition of e-Society conference in a way to explore AI as both an opportunity to improve citizens' lives, but also as a potential threat to human rights and democracy. We're going to tackle this topic through different aspects, among which also digital era for the citizens, the importance behind embedding ethics in design of inclusive and non-invasive technological solutions, responsible AI usage, and looking at disinformation online as a threat, as a potential threat to election integrity. We're approaching these topics together with esteemed and prominent experts, activists, decision makers, practitioners, and journalists from the Western Balkan region and beyond. So we warmly encourage you all to use this platform to exchange your unique perspectives and participate in the upcoming discussions. Without any further ado, I would like to invite the Chief of Cabinet of the Ministry for Information, Society and Administration, Mr. Dritan Dauti, to officially open the conference with his lightning talk on digital era for the citizens. Mr. Dauti is going to be speaking in Albanian, so in case you have not taken your headphones, please do so.
Përshëndetje të nderuar, zonja dhe zotrin, sot pra njush, do të them faleminderit për ftesën edhe doja një herë të kërkoj falje në emër të ministrit Azir Aliu, sepse kishte disa mbledhje të pashtyeshme për në qeveri dhe ishte paqetër që unë në vend të tij të merrja pjesë në këtë konferencë. Pra, zhvillimi i teknologjive në përgjithësi, e sidomos i inteligjencës artificiale në veçanti, na bën neve si shoqëri dhe institucione që dhe jemi më të angazhuar për të krijuar një ekosistem kompatibil me standardet dhe kërkesat e kohës moderne teknologjike. Sot, më shumë se kur, kemi mundësinë që edhe shoqëria jonë të jetë në hap me kohën moderne për të krijuar procese optimale, inovative dhe me standarde botërore. Bashkë me teknologji, inovacionin, etikën dhe edukimin, ne si shtet e sidomos Ministria jonë duhet të krijoj ligje dhe rregullore që këto të ngërthej në një, se përndryshe nëse njëra nga këto mungon, ne nuk do të mund të kemi një ekosistem inovativ dhe kjo mund të shkakton më shumë dëme se sa të jep rezultate. Si ministri, ne jemi vigjilent dhe dim ndikimin thelbësor të inteligjencës artificiale në shoqëri, e sidomos në të drejtat e njerëzit. Për këtë arsye, përqendrimi im qëndron në nxitjen e një ekosistemi inovativ që jo vetëm është në linjë me standardet botërore, por gjithashtu ka në qendër përveç teknologjisë dhe inkluzivitetin edhe mbrojtjen e parimeve etike themelore. Për këtë arsye, Ministria e Shoqërisë Informatike dhe Administratës dhe grupet punuese bashkë me ekspert nga vendi dhe nga jashtë punojnë në krijimin e një strategjie dhe plan aksional për implementimin e inteligjencës artificiale në administratë. Për këtë kemi definuar 4 shtylla prioritare për strategjinë e inteligjencës artificiale në administratën shtetërore edhe atë. Së pari, do të analizojmë infrastrukturën teknologjike në nivel të institucioneve shtetërore, me çka do të dalim me plan për investim, duke siguruar një inteligjencë artificiale që përputhet me standardet si teknike ashtu edhe etike. Së dyti, duke marrë parasysh praktikat më të mira evropiane dhe strategjitë e disa shteteve për të implementuar inteligjencën artificiale në vendet e tyre, do të jemi të sigurt që edhe ne si shtet do të krijojmë ligje dhe standarde për implementimin e inteligjencës artificiale në përputhshmëri me nevojat dhe vlerat botërore. Së treti, si një ministri e përgjithshme, kërkojmë transparencë në zhvillimin e inteligjencës artificiale, duke lejuar qytetarët, bizneset dhe organizatat jo qeveritare të jenë pjesë e këtyre proceseve të rëndësishme dhe të besojnë në teknologji dhe formimin e format e implementimit. E fundit, trajnimet jo formale janë kyçe për shfrytëzimin e inteligjencës artificiale në administratën shtetërore dhe për këtë krijojmë akademinë për trajnimet në administratën shtetërore, me çka do të sigurojmë që forca jonë punëtore të jetë e pajisur me njohuri për të udhëhequr me procese inovative, duke shfrytzuar edhe inteligjencën artificiale si pjesë e pandare e proceseve. Përmes kësaj qasje dhe këtyre 4 shtyllave do të hapim rrugë për inovacion që respekton dinjitetin dhe të drejtat e çdo individi. Ju faleminderit për
Thank you very much, Mr. Daouti. We warmly invite you to follow the conference in whole from the first row, while we immediately proceed with the panel discussion on ethics by design and building inclusive and non-invasive technological solutions with prominent experts, practitioners, and institution representatives from North Macedonia and Europe, moderated by Metamorphosis Openness and Engagement Specialist Mariana Jančeska.
Welcome everyone at the first session of the e-Society conference with this year's focus at artificial intelligence and human rights, finding the right balance between innovation and responsibility. My name is Mariana Janczewska, and I will be moderating the session called Ethics by Design, Building Inclusive and Non-Invasive Technological Solutions. In this digital age, the ethical dimensions of technology has never been more essential. The rapid advancement of digital solutions and services has the power to either serve as a driving force for positive change or deepen existing inequalities. Today, with us to join in this discussion, we have practitioners, theoreticians, and business representatives who will talk about the state of AI and including ethics by design in its creation in North Macedonia, the Western Balkan region, and Europe, among which Festim Halili, Director of the Fund for Innovation and Technological Development. Mr. Festim, please, can you join us? Zorica Velkovska, co-founder of Center for Social Innovations, Blink 4221. Zorica. Chris Shrishak, Senior Fellow from the Irish Council for Civil Liberties. And Tamara Dimitrova, researcher and founder of Educational Center Scamper. Myself and the guest will be speaking in English, so if you want, you can use the translation. Without further ado, I would like to ask Mr. Festim, the Director of the Fund for Innovation and Technological Development, to share with us shortly about the main activities at the moment in the Fund for Innovation and Technological Development.
Thank you very much. Initially, I would like to congratulate you for this discussion panel, for the portfolio that you contain in order to promote values, to promote science, education, and of course, today's panel is of a great importance, and it is a hot topic, as we call it, because artificial intelligence is one of the main fields where the young entrepreneurs, the young researchers find itself in order to reach their goals and results. We are all aware that the technology revolutions are very common today, and as days pass, new ways to solve different problems arise. Imagine today we have like 50 billion devices connected to the internet, according to the IBSG group, Internet Business Solution Group, which is a renowned consulting house which research and promotes statistics. So there are more devices connected to the internet than people. So it means that the communication without barriers among this constellation of devices, servers, computers, smartphones, smart houses, smart cities, everything is becoming smart nowadays. So it's very important that there are no communication of barriers between these devices. Someone would say that there are no barriers. We have the internet, but believe me, there are still barriers. For example, you have different operating systems. When the developers create one application for Android, you cannot install the same one in iOS. So researchers through AI try to handle this. So we at the Fund for Innovation and Technology Development are trying to promote and to support not only financially the companies, the micro, small, and medium companies, but also to engage them in trainings, to engage them in capacity buildings, in education, in creating more working jobs. And of course, to keep our bright minds here in our country, because as you all are aware, many of young people nowadays find opportunities in developed countries in Western Europe. In this manner, we have started the process of developing the national strategy of for artificial intelligence, where the fund, in cooperation with the Deputy Prime Minister in charge for economical affairs, we have created a working group, but this process is highly important, and this process is time consuming, is human capital consuming, financial consuming, and it takes time, of course. That's why we have addressed to our international partners like GIZ, UNDP, the World Bank, in order that we create an ecosystem of international experts who would join the domestic group and would work together in creating the national strategy for artificial intelligence. In the framework of this process, we have released lately the first state digital assistant that we named EDA, in order to promote the equal chances and inclusion. And the EDA now can automatically, reasonably answer to the questions of all customers or clients, beneficiaries that would need any kind of information. And we try 80% of all these questions to be answered in order that the society are informed for the calls, for the instruments that the Fund for Innovation offers for the companies. So it is based on 4 main patterns that the AI is based. The father of artificial intelligence is Alan Turing, who the first started to promote that even machines can think, even machines can learn, and even machines can communicate similar like humans. And he said that in order these machines or systems to be incorporated into the AI, they need to think like humans, they need to act like humans, they need to think rationally, and they need to act rationally. And that's what EDA does or do. So she communicates with the clients. So we have incorporated it in the website of the FITD, the fund, and all of you can check it, you can communicate it with it, you can ask questions regarding specific instruments, but not only this. We are now incorporating it in the 3 economic zones in order that investors to check the climate for investing in North Macedonia so that they have the prompt answers. And what is important, that EDA is never tired. She can work 24 hours and she doesn't ask for monthly salary, of course. So in the concept of the strategy, national strategy, we have concepted this instrument through the challenge that we have promoted. But in order that I don't miss some of the companies, I can mention that we have, unfortunately, there are not many companies that work with AI here in our country. In our portfolio, we have like 9 companies. We have invested like 800,000 euros in the startup companies within the artificial intelligence. But we have initiated so that even the companies co-finance in this project with 400,000 euros. in order to achieve their software-based solution, cutting-edge technologies. And for example, we have the company Pixile, which we have invested on them like 40,000 euros, I think, because usually the startups, the limit of the companies is this. But they have brought to the country a lot of new employments. They have brought to the country investment of 1 million euro from the South Venture Capital from the United States, who invested additionally. And this is what the fund does. So we create more opportunities. We create tax revenues for the country. We create more employment, more jobs for the youth here in our country. Also, we have the C-Mind with the Mila AI project, through which machines manage to feel like real emotions. Because we know that in AI, everything is rationally communicate with these systems, but this project tries to provide emotions to the machines. Also, we have the Agrar Co, which is the first neuromarketing laboratories here in the Western Balkans. We have the Idea Lab, which has developed a platform for holistic and mobile monitoring of health and behavior with the help of the artificial intelligence. We have also Hoyotech, which works on the development of sophisticated software, especially in the IoT or Internet of Things. So we have a portfolio of AI companies, startups that we support them, but we want to promote AI. You see now ChatGPT, for example. The CTO of the company is from Albania. She is just our neighbor here. And she moved to the US. She has worked on the ChatGPT, and they have reached 100 million users in a very short period of time. ChatGPT is used now worldwide by everyone, even for the students to create seminar works, to create scientific papers, to get prompt information regarding a specific field or specific theme. So, but you mentioned in the beginning, where are the limits of the artificial intelligence? So you have heard also Elon Musk, one of the founders of Tesla, SpaceX. So he said that AI might be even more dangerous than the nuclear bombs. In some manner, I agree with him, because according to one of the scientists, Hofstadter, which tried to explain the self-reference systems through the MIU puzzle and the formal axiomatic systems, he concluded that there are machines that think within the system and machines that can jump out of the system and think about the system. So what does this mean in a simple language? If the robots that have been created, they are that much intelligent that they can reproduce, recreate other robots, and this can be out of this formal axiomatic system, and they are out of the order of the humans, then it might come to an Armageddon or even because imagine if there are bad people in the world, of course. Imagine if they get the power through the artificial intelligence to have the control of data, of information in the network, in the servers. So it may be very dangerous. That's why we try to follow the measures of the European Commission. They have started a process of creating a law to creating a strategy for artificial intelligence, to put the limitation and the constraints, how long and how much and who can use the concepts or the notion of artificial intelligence in order to be safe for the society and for the European Union, but not only, also for the world. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Mr. Festim. You have mentioned several aspects that we will discuss with our speakers. You have also mentioned a lot of companies that you are supporting, and I think that you are doing a great job at the fund, not only with ADA, but with the support of the other companies as well. And we also have here Tamara. She is also part of the project that is supported by the fund. So later on, we will talk of the other side, someone that is using the support that the fund is giving. And now when we heard the overview of FITR's activities, we are moving to Zorica Velkovska, the co-founder of the Center for Social Innovations, Blink 4221. Zorica, can you share with us the projects that you are working on and that are including the artificial intelligence and the digital innovation solutions and tools that you are producing?
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. The Center for Social Innovations, Blink 4221, it's a platform that connects people dedicated to the idea that the social innovation could lead to economic, educational, social, and cultural transformation through smarter use of data, people, and technology. We established Blink in 2011, and now today we act as a social tech organization that has a team, small but quite good team of young people who design and scale innovative solutions on national or local level, but also we establish partnerships and we work on regional and European level. Our projects and products that we develop, we have always a wide discussion how to develop a technology that serves for good. It's hard to define, or I don't know who has a right to define what's good technology, but at least we that work and we use and apply technology in different projects and products, so we try to think and find the right path, how to use technology in the right way, technology that serves for improvements, technology that creates excellence, the technology that establish better communication and better connections, technology that doesn't harm, or even more, doesn't make anyone feel uncomfortable or harmed or attacked, or let's say find in the situation where it will feel in not good way. So almost all of our projects lately in the last, let's say, 5 years apply different types of technologies that are available. We are trying to follow the trends globally through our projects. So we on the way to our mission, that as an organization, we work in 3 sectors, let's say, where we try to identify social challenges in 3 sectors. The one is the public institutions and organizations and the citizens, where we apply different types of mobile, and we develop different types of mobile and web applications, platforms that like the community platform that connects the citizens with the municipality, help municipalities to digitalize local services, help them to use data for strategic decision making, and increase the participation on the communities in the local development. Also very successful project is the application for violation of workers' rights that started as an initiative with the trade union in Macedonia, and after 1 year they had a great results, and now the application we adopt for Montenegro, for Serbia, and for Moldova. So we try to develop solutions not only that solve local and national let's say challenges, because I always say innovation is local. What's innovative from one territory or for one economy, for other still not be it still cannot be innovative, or something that it's innovative in another place and it's coming mainstream for another territory can be innovation. So we try, when we develop our solutions, we try to identify not how we can address some social challenges here, but how what we develop here can be applicable in another country, because technology is cheap. Now it's affordable. The development of technology, of the people and the capacities that you need and the partnerships that you need to make to develop technology, the process is hard. It's long. It takes a lot of investments in different time of the development. What we also work and what we really look in the future that should be increased, it's the technology that we apply in education. We always say, let's make education great again. The technology can do. We work on our platform that's called VR Skills Lab, where we apply virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality technologies in creating modern learning environment where you can learn, develop skills and train in immersive environment through these applications. We have 2 applications that are applicable for high school, electrotechnical high schools in Macedonia, and 1 for adults learners, which is for tower crane operators, which have, according to us and the current trends, a huge application in the future, because the technology provides answers that people in immersive environment, they're safe, they can learn faster, they feel more confident, there is no harm, etc., etc. So that's the other type of technologies that we apply. We also apply gamification in a lot of projects, especially in the educational projects, where we develop games that engage the different target groups in scenarios, and they can learn, they can make decisions without harm, and they can have a behavior change after that. And the lately trends that are coming with the AI and the machine learning. Currently, Blink is working on a very challenging project. We are developing, and we are going to start to train a model that will recognize corruptive elements in the public procurement. It will be a preventional tool that can help all public institutions that create public procurement to improve their public procurement documents through our software, and then publish on the national portal improved and documents that don't lead to limiting of competition, etc., etc. This is the first try, and as also the director mentioned, we have maybe not a lot, but I think we have, according to the size, enough companies in Macedonia that are working now on AI and machine learning, and I hope that jointly we will develop a really applicable solution that can be upgraded, and even more that can be applicable in other countries, and can be a solution that solves some challenges out of Macedonia in the region and on European level. What's interesting that besides all the things that we develop and create, there are a lot of challenges that we are facing. And I think that we have, as a civil society, but also as a public institutions, to work together and prepare ourselves and our citizens and the communities to use technology, to safely use technology. It's not only for us to develop tools and to develop solutions, how we can improve from the side of what we offer. It's what we imagine that can be offered, and how we can imagine to be used. I believe everyone watched the film when they said that they invented like as a support, love, and sharing empathy. And no one in that time was thinking that it can be fight for likes, and it can be harmful, it can create depression, and can create another problems that we are seeing today. But it's a very big topic that, from the speed of the technology is developing, we are forgetting that we need to prepare the society to use technology safely, to understand technology. One of the most important things of the innovations that are happening is that nowadays innovations are happening in a very shorter time than previous. I always say the example about the plane. The first commercial flight was in the 50s overseas. Today, after how many years? 73 years. still more than 75% of the people never fly. For only 3 reasons. First, fear, not understanding. Second, it's not accessible. And third, it's not affordable. Still, we have regions that don't have access to fly, and they cannot afford a ticket overseas. But it took 73 years. And today, flying is the most innovative thing. You can, in 24 hours, go over the continent. The internet and the technologies started from the late 70s, or in less than 50 years. We have such a huge range of new technologies that are developing every day, every month, every second. ChatGPT is making improvements every 2-3 months. And we cannot expect that the citizens understand, can have access, and can afford. And my personally biggest concern is that what will happen with the application and use of the technology in the different sectors, because even the artificial intelligence, now we are developing artificial intelligence, we are training models, and in a very short time, we will see and we will find companies, organizations, governments that apply artificial intelligence in different sectors. They will be applied in medicine, in education, in culture, in industry. But are we ready? Do we understand? How many people here use ChatGPT every day? Yeah.
Not every day.
Not every day. How many people use one per week? I'm joking. The point is that we need to follow the trends of the development with the capacity building of the society. If the people are feeling confident, first, if they understand the technology that is developing, if they understand why it's developed, if they understand that there is no harm by using it, and if they know how to use properly, we can say that we are developing technology for good. We can say that we are developing technology for improvement of life, for creating better services, and to create excellence in the sectors. But in general, we have to take the train and start work with the people that need to use the technology, because people who develop the technology are 0.something% of the people in the world. So we need to work on that. And on the second, we really need to think more, to spend more time thinking why we are developing technology, what I can improve, can I harm someone, can someone feel offended, or can someone feel threatened by this technology, and on long term, how this technology that we are developing can be adapted in another region, because it's expensive to develop new tools. For a country like Macedonia, I believe that we need to create partnerships, not only on the civil society level, but on a business level, on a governmental level, with the countries that already use technology, and we can adapt it instead of investing and spending years and time of developing new one, because we are for small markets, we are 2 million citizens, we are trying to stay 2 million citizens, and we really need to think smarter. It's not only to develop smart technology, we need to start think smarter on applying technology for better in the communities and in the society.
Thank you, Zorica. This was very informative. And I like how we are going with the topic, like we are adding more context and more layers to what the people before us said. So Mr. Festin was talking a lot about the companies that we are supporting in the country and where the technology can go, and about our need of cooperation with other countries and other institutions and organizations that have something to share. And you, Zorica, talked a lot about your projects and what is good technology. And now we are continuing with Chris Shrishak, the senior fellow from Irish Council for Civil Liberties, that will tell us a little bit more about the EUA Act. This will be the world's first comprehensive legal framework for artificial intelligence. It was originally proposed by European Commission in April 2021, and the general approach policy was adopted by the European Council this last year, and this year the European Parliament adopted its position. Chris, can you tell us more about this act?
some slides. So I'm actually going to stand so that I can also look at the slides while speaking. So I'll speak a bit on the AI Act, but I also weave it through the topic of the conference. So I call it Balance What. So first, that's me. I work for the Irish Council for Civil Liberties. I call it Irish Council for Civil Liberties Enforce because we emphasize a lot on enforcing regulations. It's all nice writing laws, but if no one is enforcing, there's no point. It's a waste paper. So, and one of the things I primarily focus on is the Artificial Intelligence Act. So the European Commission, Parliament, I speak a lot with all of them. But what I'm not going to do is essentially speak for the Commission or anyone. So let's see what we are. So the conference is called Balance, has this aspect about balancing innovation and responsibility. And and most people, when we think about balance, it's something like this, right? There are like two things on each side, and we are weighing it together. The Commission, the European Commission, for instance, says balancing innovation and fundamental rights, for example. I actually think about balance more like this. Like, nope. Slide doesn't want to move. Oh, yeah. This is the kind of balance I think about. If you slip, you could die. And I think this is the framing we should be thinking about, because how we frame influences what we do. And if you think about balancing like this, we will not be talking about balancing innovation and human rights, but rather driving innovation that is rights affirming. And I think the previous speaker did refer to that sense that when we're thinking about reducing harm, rather than designing systems that do not cause harm, there's a significant difference in the kind of effort and the framing you use when building these systems. Oops. Yes. So one thing that was mentioned was in 2021, the European Commission proposed a regulation, and then the Parliament had its own turn earlier this year, and the Council before that. But actually, a couple of weeks ago, all of them together came to an agreement. And so we had newspaper headlines like this. There were other newspaper headlines which were more competitive, saying the EU jumping in front of the US and all of that, despite the fact that the US actually had an executive order 1 month before. So with all of that, I actually think about the EU's AI regulation more like this. It's like someone whose balancing has fallen off the rope, they're injured, they're in grave danger, and what we are doing is we are placing band-aids. That's what we are doing when it comes to human rights. We are placing band-aids because we don't have better solutions at this point because our starting point was so different. I'm going to move this side. Or this way. Okay. So much of what the EU's regulation does is focusing on a narrow set of AI systems known as AI systems for specific intended purposes. Now, this is like treating AI systems as if it's a drilling machine, which has one particular purpose. It's like you're going to drill holes into the wall. So that's the biggest framing that it uses. And if you think of AI systems like this pyramid, most of the AI systems are not going to be regulated by this regulation. So it's not about regulating all AI systems. That's the first thing. So what is it doing? It's actually regulating a small set of systems, like that tiny peak on the top. And that one is split into 3 parts. First, some AI systems are going to be prohibited because of the use cases, which are more considered high risk, even more than high risk, so they should be prohibited. I'll go into some of them. Others, high risk, so you have more responsibility in how you develop them. And there are others where you say, well, if you're more transparent about these systems, then that's fine. One good example for what should be prohibited and is being prohibited is this case, for instance, with Clearview AI, where they were scraping all the images on the internet, including on Facebook, which you wanted to share with your friends, but Clearview AI thought, well, if your friends know it, we'll scrape it too. So that is going to be prohibited. You also might have heard about various social scoring systems that are being deployed in China. That's going to be prohibited. Well, then there's the aspect about treating humans as license plates. That's how I call it. So facial recognition systems in public spaces. If you walked around Skopje, you'll probably have seen dogs on the streets who are tagged on their ear. Facial recognition systems in public spaces are like that, treating humans like number plates. The sad part, and I said this regulation is more like placing band-aids. The sad part is that it's more like it's not fully prohibited. It's prohibited mostly, but under certain circumstances, the police will be allowed to use. Then there's the aspect of emotion recognition systems, which is quite interesting because the scientific literature doesn't even back it up as it's something that works. It's primarily a pseudoscience. So even there, the European Union is more like, we'll prohibit it mostly, but if you want, you could use it. And these two, the last cases I mentioned, are also going to be treated as high risk. So you have additional responsibilities. There are other cases, for instance, using AI systems in employment situation is another case of high risk. Also, if you're traveling, we discussed about flying. A lot of flying these days also requires waiting, passing through border control and all of that. There's a lot of AI being used there. So that is also treated as high risk. But what does high risk mean? Well, there's going to be a bit more obligations. You need to take care of how you're developing these systems and all of that. Instead of going through all the list, I'll focus on one of the patchwork thing that was not included by the Commission, but the Parliament did include. It's known as the Fundamental Rights Impact Assessment. The idea being that a lot of the AI systems impact the lives of people. And it's not only about certain limited rights such as data protection, but there are impacts on freedom of association, freedom of speech. There are a lot of other human rights that are impacted. And if you're deploying an AI systems that impacts all these rights, you should probably be undergoing a proper impact assessment of all that. Well, I told you this is a patchwork regulation. So here too, it primarily only applies to public institutions and not much to private companies. Well, there's transparency. What kind of AI systems need transparency? We heard a lot about chatbots. Chatbots need transparency. If you're interacting with a chatbot, you'd like to know you're interacting with a chatbot, not a human being. But also images. Well, deepfake images, for example, you'd like to know that it's not actually the prime minister of the company, but a fake image of the prime minister of the company in some cases. I mentioned this law is primarily about AI systems with intended purpose, but we did hear about ChatGPT, for example. And in fact, the actual AI model that was behind ChatGPT was initially developed in 2020. Much before the EU's law actually came in. In spite of that, it initially didn't actually capture these systems. Fortunately, now it does. And so these are generally called general purpose because they are not designed with one particular purpose. As you might have seen, people use ChatGPT and the like to write essays. Probably shouldn't be doing that. Also to develop images. It's nice for ads and stuff, but don't sell it as your own artwork. But what goes into developing these? Much of the obligations for such systems are going to be about transparency again. So what data, where did your data come from? Where did you source it? Was it legally sourced? Was it copyrighted content? Do you get consent from people if you're using their private data? A lot of questions. But data cannot just be dumped into AI systems. There's a lot of work that goes in, cleaning them, making sure outliers are addressed. There are a lot of aspects. But much of it can be summarized. At least that's how the law sees it. The way I see some of these transparency obligations are, it's like these kind of labels you see on food products. We see the ingredients, we see how to use it and all of that. What it doesn't tell us is the amount of power consumption that goes into building these models. slave labor being used in some countries to actually go through the data, making sure they actually work, these AI systems work the way they do. There's a lot that goes into developing these large systems that is just not taken care of. And that's pretty much what the EU's law is doing in some sense. So if you're looking for a law or a regulation to mimic or to learn from, the EU's law may not be the right place for you. And I should be finishing. With all this about the technology, you might be wondering, where are the people who are being affected by these systems? Well, all I can tell you is they can complain. If they're affected, that's not a lot, but it's something. And again, it's a patchwork, it's Band-Aids, but it does a bit. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for your presentation and for sharing with us all this information. Last but not least, here with us, we have Tamara Dimitrova. And when we were talking with Tamara about topics, what to cover today, we had like a dozen of them because she is a researcher, she has a lot of interests, and she's also founder of the educational center Scamper. So we decided today to talk about Scamper more. So Tamara, what can you tell us about the Scamper teaching technique and the work of the educational center itself?
Thank you, Mariana, for the invitation and for having the opportunity to be part of this panel that catches from different sides, actually. Is it possible to place the video? Yeah, good. So as Mariana mentioned already, I have worked in research more than 8 years, theoretical research in computer science, basically. So my background is IT, mostly. But during all that work, I started developing great interest in cognitive science, which is part of one of the scientific branches which are close to computer science, and then even more into education. This is when I decided to start off Scamper, which is an educational center for preschool children, but we started spreading the scope afterwards. So we start working with children at the age of 3. Why? Because many of my panelists on today already mentioned that we are using these AI tools and different technological tools in our daily base. But what the basis is there, like we're using ChatGPT on a daily basis. Yes, but do we know actually, does everyone who uses ChatGPT knows how to use it? This is why when we started Scamper, what Scamper is, it's actually like a technique for innovative behavior. So you take one thing and with implementation of different techniques, which is why Scamper is an acronym. So C goes for substitute, C is for combine, A is for adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, reverse, and rearrange. Because when we talk about innovation today, as again, the previous speakers already mentioned, it's not about giving out to the society something which is brand new. So innovation goes by taking something which is already there, applying some of these methods and doing something which has another purpose in another context, in another environment. And you place it as an innovative tool which helps in any aspect of our daily lives. So this is why we decided to go with Scamper. Why? Because again, we Mr. Khalili mentioned that they are working with different companies which are developing AI tools. I'm happy to say that they also recognized and supported something which is on the other side of the spectrum. It's not creating technology and going into the deep about developing new and innovative technologies that use AI and machine learning, but they also recognize some innovation on the other side, which is actually in education. What Scamper actually does is it teaches these young children which are the foundations of computer science. So we teach them about computational thinking, which are actually, they have all the facets that technological people use in their daily life to create something like that. Why this is needed? Why education? Why start teaching children at the age of 3 for technology? Because we live in a digital world. They need problem-solving skills on their daily basis. We are preparing them for the future because it doesn't matter today if you are a doctor, if you work in architecture, if you work in any other field, you need to know and understand the technology because it's helping our daily lives. It's making us more productive. It helps us do our daily tasks, which is why we actually target to teach these young children not to be only passive users of technology, but active creators. Not only to create new technology, but also know how to use it, how to integrate it, and stuff like that. We do that. So what we actually do, we create a platform where changing the world starts with play, because it doesn't matter. You can teach them in any aspect or in any surrounding. You can teach them about technology. What we actually use in the center, we use robots, we use board games that we developed, which actually teach them about the basics of computation. We teach them how to define a problem, how to recognize a problem, how to approach towards solving it. We teach them about decomposition, which is actually used in our daily lives for our most of our jobs, which is how, if I have a huge problem, how do I separate it into different chunks so that I can solve them separately and then combine and make the solution greater. We teach them about abstraction. So if I know that something can be spread it into different, I can see it from different angles, or I can review what was previously done. I can predict the next steps. We teach them about sequencing. So what if I want to solve this problem step by step, which is the sequence in which these steps should be solved so that they can come up with the final solution. We teach them about pattern recognition, algorithm design, which is basically very close to sequencing, how to do things in parallel, what can be done in parallel, what cannot. So it's basically introduction to teamwork, to cooperation, to collaboration, since in this same context, creativity, perseverance, and persistency, which are actually, from my theoretical background in IT, I can, not only me, the whole research society says that actually these are the core capabilities that computer scientists use so that they can create either new technology or adapt the technology for something which is already used. So my point is that we have to start early by teaching these children, since Mr. Halili mentioned how many devices are online today. I will just add up to that 65% of the children, and this is statistics from 2 years ago, we don't have a new one, will work on jobs that have not been even invented yet. For example, UX design, which is now really important and popular, was not even invented I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. Today, we have even an urging need for these people. What I want to point out is that we have to invest in these young children to understand the technology. Not all of them have to be creators, and they do not have to work in technology, but they will have to be aware of how to use it, understand it, so that they can transfer the knowledge and use it in their daily lives. Because at the end of the day, when we talk mostly about ChatGPT nowadays, but we should not forget about Cambridge Analytica, the problems it made with the data, as the previous speaker already mentioned, and it's going to be things are going to come up even more in the following years. So this is why we decided to go to start on the other side of the spectrum, and instead of putting bandages, as the previous speaker already mentioned, we want to not give antibiotics to the children, but we want to start immunizing the system and prepare them with their skill sets that they will need, so that we can have better and more responsible citizens, so that we can prepare the society basically for using all of this technology. So I think that for me, being last, since I work in research, innovation, and technology and education mostly, I think I try to catch up with things so that previous speakers mentioned, because I sure, as you already mentioned at the beginning, Mariana, all of these fields are deeply connected, and it's like a puzzle which cannot go without any of its parts. Yeah, I would really encourage that we start working on the different parts of the puzzle at the same time, because if we want to have responsible and prepared society for the future, we also have to start early. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. I have just one additional question about the age range. What is the age of the children that are attending the kindergarten?
So the center works with children starting at the age of 3. We don't work with the robot starting at the age of 3. They have to be at least 4 years old, because there are some cases when even younger children can practice it. But the idea is that they have to have the patience, focus, and perseverance, which usually comes around the age of 4, in theory, from psychology and other aspects. But what I mentioned even before, we have developed also some different board games that don't only, so because we started at the age from 3 to 6, but then we expanded up to 8 and 9 years old, because we transferred what we did with the educational robots, because they have to be more interactive, to something which is, we moved it to board games and stuff, which are more interesting even for the pre-teens.
Thank you a lot for the explanation. Now I would like to open the space for questions, and we have time for only one question. So please, do someone from the public has a question? Okay, if no one has, okay, we have one question.
Може само на македонски да се обратам. Моето прашање е до Тамара, многу интересна презентација, особено за децата кои што се во развој. Да. Јас сум Нада Димитриевска од Центар за управување со промени. Ме интересира вашето мислење, а може и на другите панелисти, како се вклучува ова знаење во генералното образование, во образовниот систем. Во смисла на тоа дека ова е приватен центар, аплауз и честитки за вашата работа. Меѓутоа, едноставно образовниот систем мора да биде прилагоден. И конвенционалното образование, кое што има своји бенефити, мора да се задржи, и ова дигитално познавање мора да ги спреми децата. Од друга страна па имаме и тренд, вратете ги децата во природа, нека се качуваат на дрва, нека бидат поактивни надвор. Како тоа да се вклопи во образовниот систем, каде стоиме ние, а каде стои светот, дали следите, и вашето мислење на таа тема. Фала.
Ти благодарам на прашањето. Ќе почнам јас, па може да се надоврза уште некој од другите панелисти. Значи, кога почнавме, Скампар почна да работи пред неполни 6 години. Во тоа време, 10 години бевме назад за трендовите кои што се случуваат, односно кога ова нешто почна да се развива, пример во земји како Велика Британија, бидејќи тие беа едни од пионерите, и Америка нормално, кои беа пионерите во оваа област, кои што почнаа да работат и да го внесуваат во формално образование. Започнавме како едукативен центар кој не секако приватно финансиран и почнат. Меѓутоа се сложувам дека со опфаќање на многу мала група, бидејќи капацитетот наш не беше ниту преголем, не е решение за ваков особено важен сегмент. Тоа е причината зашто почнавме да соработуваме со градинките во некои пилот проекти со цел да видиме која е можноста на овој начин на работа да се пренесе и во формалното образование, затоа што тоа е начинот на кој што ќе се имунизира системот и ќе се подготви во суштина за она што доаѓа и како генерациите да си ги подготвиме во таа насока. Работата е што почнавме, ние се уште соработуваме со две државни градинки во Скопје. Приватните се исто така поприлично отворени за целава комуникација. Се обидовме дури со основните училишта, меѓутоа како што спомна и претходните говорници, има се наоѓаат пречки на патот и не е баш наједноставно тоа се да се промени. Она што можам да кажам е дека во склоп на формалното образование малку подоцна почнуваат, значи се учат овие, имаше и доста голем проект што беше финансиран, не знам се точно од кога, меѓутоа беше за digital schools, така што можам да кажам дека од четврто оделение се работи веќе со микробитс и така натаму, значи се учат овие концепти во склоп на формалното образование, но не доволно рано. А според теоријата, децата треба да се зошто започнавме од оваа возраст, затоа што во овие години највисок е интересот, највисока е мотивацијата и возбудата кај децата и можноста да учат и да го прифаќаат сето ова. Она што сакам да кажам е дека се покрива, почнуваме да покриваме во државава да никои деца почнат да го учат тоа и биде дел од формалната настава, не доволно рано, за жал се уште. Се уште, мислам, ние и најдовме начини како може ова да се инкорпорира дури во градинките, меѓутоа тоа сепак не е нешто кое што ние како приватен центар можеме да почнеме, можеме да направиме програма, можеме да најдеме начин како да го интегрираме, но си бара поинаков и посистемски пристап за да тоа биде имплементирано целосно. Така што да, као заокружување го имаме во склоп на системов, е поприлично доцна, меѓутоа ги учат тие problem solving skills. Дали можеме подобро секако, меѓутоа останува да видиме кои се начините за да тоа нешто почне порано да се имплементира.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you for the public and for the question. I would like to thank all the speakers who contributed to our session and hopefully motivated the audience to investigate more regarding the AI and the ethics by design when AI is created. Now, I invite you all for a short coffee break, after which follows a lightning talk, Responsible AI Usage by Kamil Siliwowski, instructional designer from Poland.
Oops. Okay. Thank you very much for staying with us. As people are slowly approaching, I would like to kindly ask you to take your seats so that we can move on with the agenda. In our pursuit of innovation, it is crucial to wield AI responsibly, considering all the ethical implications and societal impact. Responsible AI usage demands thoughtful design, transparency, and ongoing collaboration, as we already heard in the previous session, to ensure that technology serves humanity ethically and equitably. To talk on this, we have Kamil Sliwowski, instructional designer in INCO Poland, who will be joining us online. Kamil, the floor is yours.
Well, I hope you can hear me well. I wish I was with you live, but still it's as good as it's possible. So I will share my screen and start as fast as possible, because I remember I only have 15 minutes and I tend to make workshops out of any presentation. So I don't want to take too much of your time and still give you all the examples that are as practical as possible. As mentioned, just to add briefly, I'm an instructional designer, so I create courses about digital skills, from fighting misinformation, green digital skills, up to coding and programming. But I'm also involved for last 11, 12 years with Polish Panoptykon Foundation, which is fighting for digital rights. I'm supporting their not only educational efforts, but also different ways of testing how new technology can impact society and impact our human rights. So I'll try to combine both of those experiences in this short presentation. And I will just start with giving you some kind of a thesis to think about. From one side, we probably already feel after this one extremely intense year in technology that AI is making us more productive. And from my perspective, what is the most important part is that AI is making us more productive, but it's making us more productive without much of skills needed to acquire, any new skills that we need to acquire to become more productive, which is a bit different if you compare this moment in history of technology to previous moments, like digital tools that were giving us more creativity, like tools to edit video, edit graphics, or programming. Those, even if simple, they require some kind of education, some kind of new skills to be gained. Generative AI is so easy, and I think it's also easy to not see that coming. It's so easy to acquire basic skills to start using it, that it's making a lot of new people, newcomers, being able to gain productivity, to have some productivity gains in their work or any other area they want to use generative AI. I will also, of course, put all the sources I'm mentioning, all the reports at the end of the presentation, so you can read a bit more about this specific research, which is exactly about this. How newcomers without almost no specific skills can gain a lot of productivity through using AI. Experts tend to gain a little bit less, which is also very interesting. But that's just to begin with. Where do we gain this like additional productivity? A lot of different scopes are possible. There are many research, although all this research is done only last year, so it will be probably reviewed in next few years. We'll gain, I think, a lot of more better insights after next few years, but we have to research as much as possible, even in this first year. People tend to create faster than they did before. People tend to save time through using generative AI. So we have some productivity. We also have some additional time we can spend on different tasks. We also start to write and outsource a lot of creative writing and creating tasks towards AI. So we are spending less thinking and drafting and writing ourselves. We tend to do that with support of generative AI, which is very interesting. This was a typical creative task, to write something, to produce a design plan, stuff like this. And we start to use generative AI to support us with that. So this is from one of the research I, again, highly recommend, but this is just part of it, just part of the picture. I think what is very important to know and understand, especially after this first year, is to drop only the illusion that we are working only with chatbots, with general tools like ChatGPT, which is the most popular. I think we have to think about how responsible use of AI will be. Also important to understand this in terms of using specialized tools, and I will show you some examples. tools that are multimodal, so tools that are not only working with text, but also with graphic, with video, with audio generation, with understanding video and graphics and creating new videos or new graphics, new images. So multimodal is able to mix those methods. And also with generative AI that's much more capable than last year. And if we'll meet next year and in 2 years from now, it will be even more and more capable. So the speed of these capabilities is also something to have in mind when we think about how do we get this new level of productivity. And at the same time, how we can use this productivity of generative AI in a responsible way. So just give you 3 examples very briefly. This is a specialized tool created to write fundraising communication trained on specific NGOs, especially from English world. And you don't have to use ChatGPT. You can adjust your fundraising communication based on very specific, successful data. And you can easily do that by just tweaking a few settings. So this is an example of a specialized tool. This is really getting a lot of NGOs, a lot of additional time, a lot of additional content that they can test, they can write without writing them themselves. Is it good or bad? That's not for me to question right now, just to give you a first example. Second would be this multimodal example, that we are not just chatting with ChatGPT or BART or similar tools. We are getting out of them tasks that were impossible 2 or 3 years from now. So this is super simple example of chat reading an image and in a few steps recreating this image in different language, which for me as an instructional designer, this is hours of work, my own translation or working with translation company and design this in a design tool. Right now, I can do this with minutes of work with few specific tools that are generative AI. And the last thing is the capability, which probably you already know, because this is the part that's, I think, the most scariest for people in terms of unresponsible use of AI. AI is capable more and more on creating very good multimedia. In this example, I've created 6 languages of the same speech I gave, few-minute speech I gave in one language in English, and then I created myself. And on smartphones for people in workshops, those videos are in good enough quality to not to spot which one is the original video. So the capabilities are growing, but we have to now ask ourselves a second question: how we can make generative AI used for work? How we can make it safe? What kind of questions we have to ask to make it not only practical and productive, but also safe? So this is the second part of my work: not only to use it, not only to test it, not only to create some great content with it, but also how I can make it safe for myself, for the people who we are training, and for the rest of the company I'm working with. So we start with trying to ask what are the most important questions that we can ask specifically to before we use ChatGPT or any other tools. This is a very simple diagram. I'm making those diagrams for my coworkers much more complicated for them to ask the questions before they use your tool. So about data accuracy, about can they test the data? Can they trust what they get? Are they inputting any sensitive data? What do they have to do if they want to input any sensitive data into a new tool? And also, like, what do they require from the content at the end of the day to be in terms of copyright or alignment with specific regulations? And you can see that safe use of ChatGPT, even if this in the simple diagram, is only in one scenario after you go through all those 4 questions, and that's just the beginning. So what we can do, and I will try to speed through a few solutions. If we want to avoid amplification of existing bias in those tools, we have to take into account that most of those tools and models currently are very biased. So we have to, especially as NGOs or companies and governments, I think we have to think about training our own models and training them on specific data that we tried to make as little bias inside as possible. Currently, it's very biased. This is a screenshot from Bloomberg investigation about gender bias in most of the models. but you can read and find research on that, on not only gender bias, but cultural bias, many other types of biases happening already inside those models. So this is a task for governments and for NGOs for near future, how to think about this, how to prepare models that are less biased. Second of all, this is something that already even a small task, small group of people, maybe a small NGO, a small company can take into account. So cybersecurity and responsibility in terms of cybersecurity of using generative AI tools. What I found very interesting and annoying, especially when I work and train a lot of people, that we try to test as soon as possible, as soon as we get our hands on something new, as soon as we hear that there's a new AI generator of images or text or a model, we try to not only test it, but we also try to use it for productivity, which is super scary for NGO or a company or a government before any audits. So I think currently we have to train ourselves, we have to train our coworkers to wait for security audits and also to train ourselves on cybersecurity. This is just an example of how easily ChatGPT was able to give personal data that was hidden in the training model. So researchers tested like 200 scenarios when they got a lot of data leaks out of ChatGPT custom chatbots. So the data that should not be available publicly, that was only used for training the model, is available to get it extracted without specific technical skills, just with some prompting. So this is something we have to prepare and train people to avoid, not only putting this kind of data, but also train them in how to responsibly choose what to put inside any generative AI tool. One more thing, or two more things, I think two more solutions, copyrights. And without dwelling too much into that, I think just one recommendation that I'm already exploring with a lot of teams and trainings, that I try to train people and advise on using better alternatives, because there are alternatives already. So if you just think about image generation, there are image generators that are trained on copyrighted data, and there are image generators that are maybe still a bit less effective, but at least they tried to only be trained on copyrighted images that they own. So the company, like in this example, Getty Images or Adobe, they own the images, they train the model. So the output of the model cannot infringe anyone's copyright, which is very good. And this will be, I think, like one of the main reasons for NGOs, governments, and companies to pick between safer and better alternatives, not just pick the one that's like the coolest or the most popular right now. And one last thing, if we think about responsible use of AI, I tend to ask people also about ethical use of AI. So the responsibility is not only taking into account all those specific technical or legal problems, it's also taking into account working conditions of people who create specific tool or model. And just to give you a very brief idea, in terms of social media, we have to work with a lot of content moderators that prepare the content, they check the content before it goes public. We don't think about this the same with AI tools, but they are done in the same way. They have a lot of training moderators that are training the data. They are spotting anything that could be illegal or it could be abusive. So they have to do the same dirty work for AI models as they did for, or as they do still for social media. And we need to demand more transparency on work conditions of people who are in the background of those models. And last thing, just briefly, if we want to talk about responsible use of AI, we also have to think about what are the real costs in terms of energy use and environmental use. Currently, using AI in comparison to a Google search or any other tool that gives us a similar result, it's much more energy intensive. And there are countries already who are hurt by that because just building new places where the AI is trained requires a lot of energy and a lot of water. So this is something that we maybe don't think about that much on a daily basis while using digital tools, but it's also something to take into account if we think about really making AI use responsible. And I will finish with one bonus task for you. One thing before I will just ask you one question, open question on the Mentimeter is because you are sitting currently in one country, but we are from different countries, the speakers, maybe some participants. I encourage you to think about this and maybe talk with your friends, like what are specific cultural and country differences about thinking about AI? Why is that? Because most of those tools currently are created in US, and most of the use that especially we are discussing today, it's not happening in US. It's happening in different countries, in different cultural contexts, in different languages. And we tend to forget that people in different cultures, in different languages, might have different opinion, different needs out of this technology. So for example, in Poland, which I'm from, Poland is, I would say, like in between being a skeptic country towards AI, not such optimistic as many Asian or Arab countries are much more optimistic. So they might want to have a different regulation in the future that we might want to have in Europe, in Poland, or other countries. So we have to think about this. What are the differences in context and cultural people who are using it, not only who are making the tools, who are making and creating those models. And two recommendations to finish. We need more such frameworks, from simple, as I showed you, to much more complex, like regulations, country EU regulations or international regulations. We need those both for people to, on a daily basis, to make better decisions, which tools to use and how. So a framework for my employees, for my colleagues, is enough to make a decision. But for a country or for an NGO, for a big organization, a regulation might be much more important. So knowing who is at what level of alignment with specific regulation. Here you can see kind of a prototype, and you can already see that in between those different models, between different companies, already we can see differences in how transparent they are, differences in how they train the model, how they use copyrighted data, copyrighted materials or not. We don't need to, and we should not think just that there's like one main company and everyone else should be doing the same, copying their solution. It might be better if we have some diversity, and different companies will try to achieve different levels of being more transparent and more prepared for such regulation. And if I can finish with just one question, you can scan this code, I'm sorry, and you can answer my last question. I got 15 minutes. I probably took 2 or 3 minutes of your time too much. Sorry for that. But if you can scan this or go to this website and rewrite the code, I just wanted to ask you the same question as I ask all participants of meetings, trainings, or speeches I give about AI currently, which will be shown in a second. So I just wanted to ask you, before I finish, to rate this intuitively. How do you feel right now about different use cases of generative AI, and how you can rate by yourself how useful or overhyped you think this specific technology is, and how harmful or positive it is. So think about your line of work, your area of work, your area of expertise, and maybe you did not test it, all of those. You can just then intuitively pick and choose. Or if you tested, if you're using this in your area of work, just try to pick and imagine, okay, how useful, overhyped this is, or how harmful or positive this is. I will try to show the results in a second. And while you be voting, I hope it will work, hopefully. We'll see. Oh yeah, we got some results. It was just waiting for internet connection, I think. So you can still vote on that. And I will finish with all the resources. If you've opened the presentation by scanning the code, you can see right now, you can copy the resources I was using to give you this presentation, all the research I've based my data on. So you have all of that available. And with that, I can finish. So this is my email. This is a robot saying thanks. And sorry, I took a little bit more of your time. That's why I'm a trainer, a lot more than a keynoter or a speaker. That's all from my side. Super thankful to be able to show you this to you and share some experiences from my work as trying to be responsible instructional designer using a lot of AI in his work.
Thank you very much, Kamil, on your insights. And you've definitely opened a lot of questions. I myself couldn't answer them all at the end, but hopefully we hope to have you next year in person also, so that we can discuss further all of the things that you have shared. Now we proceed with the second panel discussion that explores the impact of disinformation search as a threat to the integrity of the electoral processes, moderated by our Partnership and Resource Development Director, Filip Stoyanovski, before we wrap up the conference.
Hello, everybody. It's an honor to speak on behalf of Metamorphosis Foundation and to invite the speakers that we have aligned for this last but not least session. I would like to invite the two speakers that we have in physical presence here, Mr. Jan Cinel from Slovakia and Mr. Fitim Gashi from Kosovo, who will also be joined by our speaker from the Netherlands/Serbia, Ms. Bojana Kostic. Do we have Bojana online? Yes. Can we'll just make us a video check. Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. I would also like to, so we hear Bojana well. We have a translation between English, Macedonian, and Albanian. And I guess we'll be speaking in all three languages, both some of the speakers and the people in the audience who are invited to then join the discussion. So if you don't speak some of these languages, take your translation gear, please. So basically, I will be the moderator, but I will also give a short introduction before introducing each of the speakers, who will also give their own intro. The panel will continue after the intro speeches with discussion, both with the audience and with the speakers. And we encourage you to have as much, to use these opportunities as much as possible, because it's our goal to have exchange of knowledge, not only from the panelists to the audience, but also in all directions possible, and to facilitate networking and basically all come out wiser at the end, and more intelligent, naturally intelligent, I guess, not artificially. So basically, I will start with a short introduction, which will present a little overview of the situation in our Balkans region, which is based on the work of the 6 partners and other associates of the Western Balkans Anti-Disinformation Hub project, which is led by Metamorphosis Foundation, but also includes 5 other organizations, including Bunker from Kosovo, Why Not from Bosnia, Paktoje from Albania, ISAC from Serbia, and CDT from Montenegro. Together, we track the flow of disinformation in the region and provide different types of responses, both in terms of journalistic and watchdog journalism, investigative journalism, fact-checking, analytical work, but also advocacy and other types of policy, leading to policy making that will lead to systemic solutions. The project is supported by the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and one of the things that we do is media monitoring, and we gather the knowledge collected in a knowledge hub database, a huge database with several thousand so far items collected of different instances of disinformation, fact-checking articles, and other data, which is providing the grounds for our other work and for building an early warning alert system, which would combine all these types of approaches in one synergy, including tracking both the instances of disinformation and responding them, but also the narratives, the narrative frames, and the associated political or media behavior, including identification of different actors who perpetrate foreign malign influences. We synthesize the results of this work in numerous articles, which are available on all partners' websites, but also in summary publications, including media monitoring reports and larger analytical pieces, which are all available for you online, because we are all about sharing knowledge. And I will show some, basically, the aim, what we see is that the aim of all the disinformation and related spreading activity in the region is to basically perpetrate the existing fissures or differences in society, to exploit them in order to further different geopolitical goals which are adverse to the interests of the people in the region, because they have overwhelmingly decided that our strategic goal is joining the European Union as a way of developing democracy and prosperity. However, when we track the disinformation flow, we see that there are several types of patterns that emerge, including different types of most popular narratives, and which are present in the region, and with some differences between countries. However, back to the topic of AI, one of the things that we see is that in the region, there is use of AI-generated disinformation content, which is affecting the public, which is affecting the public opinion. But usually, this type of content, is not native to the region. It is imported usually, even though there are some exceptions that we will warn about. But this type of content can range from something that can be considered benign, such as, let's say, disinformation about British royal family, celebrity gossip and whatnot, which, or something that is presented as satire, but very often, when presented in local context, it is accompanied by local content added to it by people who disseminate it in order to further their political agenda, especially in order to spread hate speech or to send anti-Western messages. These are some examples that I will just briefly show. For instance, while most of the disinformation in the region is promoting anti-democratic values and goals of authoritarian regimes and their local proxies, we also have some disinformation that is also adverse to interests of them, such as this type of images which show that Putin is having problems. But generally, what we see is also that people use these different types of disinformation to further their own ideological agenda. So, for instance, if they want politicians arrested or want to complain about some sort of oppression, they use this type of fake images about Trump being arrested. If they want to complain about the health system and functioning of society, they use this type of images about imaginary minister of health in Japan. We also have a mix, for instance, when first the AI-generated image of the Pope in white parka appeared, it could be thought as a joke or benign. But what we saw is that in many communities, this was used as an excuse for spreading religious hate speech in the comments. And this is a common feature of all these types of disinformation. Sometimes these types are used for inciting local divisions or And especially after this type of images came up with the Pope in the rainbow flag, we saw that across the region, there was a surge of this hate speech both against the Catholics, let's say, which draws roots even from the 90s, where the religious divides were used in the Yugoslav wars of secession. For instance, Catholics as Croats as Catholics were presented as a threat by Serbian propaganda across the region to the Orthodox population, and it is still affecting them. And that's why we have the Pope as a symbol or bait, but also along other ideological lines. So trying to align some sort of powerful figures with their cause, such as Elon Musk, was presented across several instances as being a Bosnian Serb, but we'll see that this is not the only example. As Putin promoting Serbia, so in order to create goodwill towards Russia, Serbia in the football championship. And also there is a lot of disinformation that is anti-Ukraine, including presenting the President Zelensky as a bride or as mocking or trying to undermine his efforts to gain support, or even trying to show that there is some problem within the Ukrainian state and so on. These usually you will notice that there was a attempt for coup d'etat in Russia by Wagner, and immediately there is a counter disinformation claiming that there is such attempt in Ukraine, which is untrue. And also we have in the latest 2 months surge of disinformation related to the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza and elsewhere, where different groups try to maybe promote some of their own agenda by using AI-generated images of the suffering in Gaza and the tragedy that unfolds there. But and to present the sides which they have picked as winning or losing or evil or good. But we also have this more non-open disinformation types generated by AI, such as something that can be considered amusing, like some historical falsehoods about the Statue of Liberty, a statue of Barbie in Dubai, or some photos of giants. But what is interesting about this type of phenomena is that those who share this disinformation build clicks. These are used as clickbaits for them to gain influence and then share other conspiracy theories or pursue some political agenda, such as religious hatred or presenting their people who think differently of them as Satanists, or promoting well-known conspiracy theories such as that moon landing was fake. There are also some positive sharing of this type of disinformation, such as this one that showing AI-generated images. They are not photographs, but images of firefighters from Greece helping Turkish kids and so on. So sometimes it's done with good intentions. What we see here, and this is the end of my intro, is that we need really a systemic approach, a multi-layered approach, and that's why we have the experts who are present here to give us different perspectives. Therefore, I, without hesitation, invite Mr. Jan, who is founder and president of Strategic Analysis from Slovakia, the country which we can use as an example, both in regard to many aspirations of the country of the region, of the countries from the region, but also about where we can draw lessons from recent developments. So without further ado, Mr. Jan Sinel, please.
Thank you very much, Philip. Thank you very much for the invitation for this nice event. First, a footnote, I'm not a tech guy. I'm dealing with disinformation, so more closely to what Philip was now introducing. So I will not be talking about technicalities of the fake news and how they are influencing the the elections, but rather the soft part of that, being specifically talking about democracy and how democracy can be vulnerable. And I will link it to a very concrete example, and that is of my country, Slovakia, where we had elections on 30th of September. And this was the first time when deepfake, AI-generated deepfakes were used to swing the moods of the population towards a certain end. Maybe just to give you a very quick overlook of the situation that was before the elections. These were the early elections that were called upon because of the government lost confidence in the parliament, and the early elections were announced. Then the technical government took place, and the technical government was basically running Slovakia. And from the political parties, the most prominent were the oppositional parties, which were in opposition for the period of 3 years, but before they were in power for over 12 years. And had to step down because of big protests that were unleashed after one journalist was killed, murdered in Slovakia, and also his fiancée, Jan Kuciak. Maybe you heard the story. Jan Kuciak and his fiancée, Martina Kušnírova, they were killed because he was an investigative journalist doing research into high-level corruption connected with that government in place. Then there were elections, they were voted out, and they were in opposition. Now, to come back to power, they used the narratives which were close to those pro-Russian narratives and anti-Ukrainian narratives, because they had the sense that while the technical government was strongly pro-Ukrainian and supporting Ukraine, including the military means, they felt that the population is maybe scared because of the war right in the neighborhood. So they were using narratives which were very close to pro-Russian. Apart from these old guys trying to get into power, there was another political party in the opposition, a liberal one, pro-European, that was also trying to get to the fore, and they were competing for the first position with the more rightish populist party, which I mentioned, Smer, and the party, the Liberal Party that was fighting with them who will win the elections was the Progressive Slovakia, that was a progressive and liberal party. And both these deepfakes involve the leader of Progressive Slovakia. The first deepfake that was created was more or less just like a funny audio. It was more like a prank than a real deepfake influencing democracy. It was an AI-generated voice of the leader of the Progressive Slovakia, Michal Šimečka, who was heard saying that when they will win, the liberals, when they will win the elections, they will increase the prices of a beer. Well, increasing prices of alcohol in Slovakia, that's not going to gain you too many points. So this was the first AI kind of audio that went viral. They started to spread it around, and but mostly it didn't get that much traction. It was more like a fun, okay, the AI was really poor. The voice, you could hear the melodicity of the voice was like jumping, and Slavic languages, and I believe also Albanian language, they have very, very interesting melodicity. So I think for AI, it's at the moment it's a little bit difficult maybe to grasp it in order it sounds fluent, but I'm sure that with all the new developments, the AI can learn also these languages. Anyways, so this first one was really just more like a prank, attempting this to smear the campaign, to launch kind of a smear campaign against this liberal party. However, the second AI-generated audio was much more serious. It was a kind of as if a recording of a telephone conversation between, again, the leader of this liberal party that was competing to win the elections, with one very famous investigative journalist who was very vocal in those protests in support of Jan Kuciak. And she was really very actively writing about corruption cases of Smer party and those that were in power for 12 years before the year 2020. So the whole that was just a couple of minute audio file on which this leader of the Liberal Party was again heard saying how they will manipulate the elections, how they will be buying votes among the Roma population in the eastern part of Slovakia, how they will try to bribe the journalists in order they write favorably about their political party and similar things. Again, the quality was rather poor, but this time it got traction because it was started to be spread through Telegram channels that were of some influencers which were and are strongly pro-Russian. So these pro-Russian channels, Telegram channels, they started to spread this audio, and then it transformed into it spilled over to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So people started to spread it. By the time the authorities managed to do something about it, they had like 100,000 sharings on Facebook, around 30,000 sharings on Instagram, and of course it was sharing also through other channels. And what was even more complicating things to cope with it, this audio was released during the so-called pre-election moratorium. In Slovakia, we have 2 days before elections when it is forbidden to do the regular and standard campaigning before the elections. And even the politicians running in the elections, they have a limited space and position to actually deny this kind of information, because then they could be fined by the state election authority for misusing the moratorium. So it was kind of a deviously planned and released. Luckily, the state institutions, they reacted quite promptly. So within 2 hours, the authority which is responsible for monitoring of the media space, they send the warnings to the providers of the services, to Meta, to TikTok, etc., in order they put it down. Some were quicker, some were slower. The slowest was, as usually, Facebook. But by the time they managed to kind of limit the spreading, it really spread, as I mentioned. And there is this wise old saying, and it really fits the situation also with those who are doing debunking, that while truth ties its laces, the lie is already running its 10th lap. So it's spreading quicker than the lies are spreading quicker than the truth. What was the kind of impact of this AI-generated deepfakes? It's difficult to assess. Mostly, it confirmed those people who wanted to vote for those right-wing or extreme right-wing parties, that there is some kind of a liberal conspiracy that wants to stall the election, because this was a kind of a narrative that the extreme right parties were running before the elections. And so this deepfake was like confirming their bias, that yes, elections will be stolen, because they were even talking about it on this audio. It didn't change too many minds of people that wanted to vote for the Liberal Party, and they swing to somebody else. So so that's probably the impact. So plus also the quality was not that great. So people who little understand this technology, they understood that this is a fake, and they immediately starting to call it out, call it that those are the fakes. However, what is also interesting was that exactly in the same time when this deepfake audio was released, there was an official press release in Russia by the Russian Civilian Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, by Mr. Narishkin, director of this SVR, that the United States of America are trying to steal elections in Slovakia, like sending this, again, balloon of disinformation, again during the moratorium. So it was during this moratorium when it was you could not talk about the elections in Slovakia. And this again hit the traction. And again, for some people, this was a confirmation. You see, even Russians are saying that elections will be stolen. So it must be true. So it again created this kind of a confirmation bias that yes, the elections in Slovakia will be stolen, and it created this kind of a situation, even nervousness in the Slovak society. How it ended up? Actually, the Smer party and the center-right, extreme right parties won the elections. Now they formed the government. The Liberal Party ended up second, and now they are in opposition. And what is interesting, maybe I will talk about it in the second part, because I'm speaking too long. They started to kind of dismantle some of those mechanisms which protected Slovakia from spreading of the deep fake on that election day. And I would like to stop here. As we can see, these democratic processes are vulnerable towards AI-generated fakes. This is just kind of a first bird, and I'm sure that the AI will develop further, and it will be even more realistically sounding, and it will be probably the part of pre-election campaigns. You are expecting big elections next year, presidential and also parliamentary. I'm sure there will be deepfakes, AI-generated deepfakes also here, because this kind of democracies like in Slovakia, Central Europe, Southeastern Europe, which are more prone to populism and more prone to more vulnerable. These more vulnerable democracies are also more vulnerable to this kind of AI-generated fakes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jan. I will now invite our online speaker, Ms. Bojana Kostic, who is digital rights researcher and advocate, currently based from the Netherlands, but she has heritage from the Balkans, so she can navigate both worlds and show us an experience that would be very useful, that would further our thinking, because she's both human rights and technology researcher and advocate who has been co-founder of Pen to Paper consultancy, but also she has been engaged with different human rights defense organizations as part of their efforts to achieve what we see as the goal of our conference, to a balance between the technology and the quality of life, which is based on human rights protection. So Bojana, please welcome, and let's have your introduction.
Sure. Thanks so much for this invitation. I'm really sorry for not being able to participate in person. I promise next year I'll be there. But this was amazing introduction so far. I have to be honest, and also a bit of a disclaimer here. I'm not a tech expert, and my work predominantly looks at the platform regulation, and there's information naturally kind of swings in, but is not predominant focus of my everyday work. But in any case, I wanted to say a few words in this introductory note about the upcoming and currently enforced EU regulation, and how and what we can learn from it in the process of alignment with this regulation, to kind of maybe already start thinking about the ways we can actually use the proposed mechanisms to counter or correct at least the narratives and the stories that we heard, the cases that were presented up to now at this panel. So I will just briefly introduce, so there is a lot of things happening at the EU level right now when it comes to platform regulation, more broadly AI regulation, and then specifically at the level of disinformation and political micro-targeting. So they're all kind of compartmentalized, but they all kind of build on each other, and they are kind of, as a lawyer, you kind of learn to see the way they're all kind of also connected. And why I said at the very introduction, it is very important to understand that these are not the processes that are kind of slowly coming to, or legislative efforts from the EU that are slowly coming and reaching the region. Some of them are in fact already applicable, and I guess you already heard and know a lot about the DSA, Digital Service Act. That's been discussed for ages, but now there's actually kind of is in force, is put in force, and a number of obligations to ensure responsible and accountable social media platform and other big companies' conduct are actually already laid out. So by February next year, so which is actually like round the corner, it's like in 2 months, a number of social media companies that are referred to as very large online platforms will have a set of responsibilities and compliance mechanisms to respect in order to ensure that their conduct, their business is in line with the freedom of expression standards and other fundamental rights that are all building blocks enshrined at the EU level. So what is important for us at the regional level, and something that I just want to briefly touch upon, is an initiative that has actually started last year, actually this year, within the process of which so-called Berlin process, which is a process to kind of ensure that EU values, EU standards are already kind of streamlined across the EU, throughout the EU accession process at the EU level, but through this kind of a very strong regional component. So as opposed to kind of in-country alignment process, there is like another specific process out of many, Berlin process, that actually looks at it at the regional level. And within this Berlin process, regional alignment, what actually happened is that an organization based in Bosnia, and this also was a partner, as I may see, in this project, Zašto.ne, actually ran a consultancy process with 80 people across the region to inquire and to kind of explore what are the DSA, so to say, hopes and opportunities for the region. And what came out, and I will share it later in the chat, what was actually ended up being a DSA position paper that will inform our regional work in next year on the DSA. In more specifically, what we are kind of hoping to achieve, and when I say we, I mean a number of NGOs that kind of are putting efforts together, and I kind of called all of you to kind of, if you are interested, get back to me, and we will definitely find a way to kind of incorporate your views and your knowledge, because this is more than anything else participatory process. What we are trying to achieve concretely when it comes to DSA is to work and to strongly advocate for a digital service coordinator as a multi-stakeholder executive body. I will say a few more words why digital service coordinators are relevant under the DSA umbrella. But for now, from the regional perspective, I think it's important to understand that our standing and starting position is that the DSA, the digital service coordinators, need to be multi-stakeholder executives. So multi-stakeholder in a sense that that there should be a body that incorporates state authorities and non-state actors. And here we kind of think about a number of CSO, academics, private experts, in terms of like private actors that actually have a more explicit understanding of kind of a business-driven logic of this whole field. And on the other hand, executive means that the non-state actors should not only be there to monitor or advise the state authorities, who will be definitely at the driving seat, but also have an executive responsibility to jointly throughout the shared responsibility. And that comes maybe as a surprise, given what is the kind of overall or mainstream idea across Europe. But here we wanted to make sure that given the relevance of the DSA in the region and at the country level, it is very important that all the expertise that has been kind of building up at the non-state, so to say, CSO level has and find its relevance for the state authorities, or is put at service to the state authorities to ensure a proper, adequate, and effective application and implementation of the DSA. And then why are these DSA coordinators, digital coordinators under the DSA so relevant? Because they are the one, if you recall, at the level of the GDPR, we have established a number of data protection commissioners who are basically a focal point of responsibility for the implementation and alignment with the data protection regulation in our countries. So the same kind of, by the same token, by the same logic, the digital coordinators will have that kind of a role under the DSA. And here we are talking about not only the integrity of the information sharing or in information or the kind of a diversity of political or non-political information that is circulated online in our in-country and regional level. But here we also talk about responsibility for monitoring the illicit content, who is going to be or not going to be a trusted flagger, all the different kind of protocols that need to be set in place. So there is a lot of work on the shoulders of the digital service coordinators, and we believe that as a multi-stakeholder executive body, it will have a way more, how to say, proper or just impact or just adequate, how to say, implementation in the region. And by no means the DSA, the Digital Service Coordinator, will be actually members of so-called European Board for Digital Services that is going to be chaired by the Euro Commission, ensuring at a regional level as well that there is a voice, or there are voices, regional voices present in this ongoing discussion about how to hold accountable companies, big tech companies, VLOPs as they're referred to, or under the umbrella of the DSA. So for the DSA, just to conclude, what we would like to see is it being implemented sooner rather than later. And that's what we kind of are going to strive to do next year through our advocacy efforts. And please, if anyone is interested, just text me or whatever. We would like to have more voices for sure and more views on this. And just briefly on two other legislative initiatives that are still in the process of making or baking at the EU level. One is almost done. It is EU AI Act. And initially, and put simply, the idea was to kind of have a first ever, and which is really true, like a binding instrument on AI regulation, specifically looking at the process of developing and the usage of the AI. And to be able to kind of grasp the size of it, just so you know, like anything from spam filters to emotional recognition systems is covered under the EU Act, based and categorized on 4 different levels of risks to human rights and democracy, so to say. So we understand it's a human rights-based approach. But then at the latest, though the process started in 2021, almost 2 years after, what we are seeing is still a huge pressure by certain countries to water down the already kind of embedded safeguards. So there is a huge discussion about the one certain category, which is called high risk category. There you can see, you can find anything using AI to make decisions about employment, about social housing, law enforcement, migration, biometric surveillance. So these are like, there's a really ongoing discussions, and it's really kind of it's taking it at the very last stage of the negotiation process at the EU level. So there is like very little hope that certain things will be, that it will be like so-called red flags or certain usages of AI that are not necessarily relevant for this discussion, but it's good to know that like there are no red flags, which means like a full ban, full prohibition on facial recognition or biometric surveillance or emotional recognition and so on. So just so you know, but also what is important for this discussion, and I call you over because I don't have time to go into this, but there is a whole segment which has been added after the ChatGPT was released from the bottle. There is like a whole section and provisions on generative AI, and like a certain kind of responsibilities are put in place and so on. And finally, I will just draw your attention to something that is already also under the negotiation, which is called a proposal for regulation on the transparency and targeting of political advertising, which is actually very relevant for this discussion. So that in that sense, political targeting and political advertising refers to any information, any message that is liable to influence voters' behavior. So anything that Philip was mentioning and my previous speaker mentioned kind of would fall under the scope of this, will fall in the future under the scope of this regulation. It doesn't really matter for this regulation whether it is AI produced or it is not. It doesn't really matter. What matters is whether it had an influence on the political subject. And what can have an influence on political subject is subject to debate, right? And that's where actually the debate is currently taking place at the EU level. But what is important to know is that the platforms and those who are like intermediaries will be actually responsible for labeling the content as a political ad, informing the users that this is a political ad, and making available under the transparency principles all the ad archives with all the labels from the political subjects who actually paid for these advertisements. In addition, platforms and other intermediaries will be obliged to take down content that is being reported by the user if it is mislabeled, inappropriately labeled, or if it doesn't fall, if it kind of is a political ad but has not been labeled as such. And this obligation will be effective prior to the elections, with an obligation to take down this content or to correct the label for the 48 hours in the time period or the time frame of 84 hours. So just to conclude, like there are a number of existing or upcoming legislative mechanisms and tools that are already there, kind of well placed in a number of different regulations that might already inform our work in this particular field when it comes to countering disinformation. I didn't mention code to combat disinformation because most of you already are aware of it, and it will become most likely and seemingly kind of a part of the DSA kind of a struggle, so to say. But in general, what I wanted to say is that alignment with the EU legislation is not in the coming, it's already there. We as the CSOs are really relevant voices to be involved in these processes, especially kind of already suggesting or already kind of learning from the existing mechanisms and how we can actually part of them or entire kind of provisions be applied at a certain moment, at a certain levels, be it at the level of developing different strategies when it comes to AI, at the national level, be it if we want to work on self-regulatory and co-regulatory mechanisms with the media, and I don't know, like through different media literacy programs and so on. So basically, just to conclude, it's already there, and it's up to us basically as a CSO to kind of get good understanding of all of these different layers. For lawyers, it will be quicker than for non-lawyers, I have to be honest. It helps if you're a lawyer. And to kind of grasp it and get involved as much as possible on many different levels, right? Not only at the country level, but also at the regional level, at the EU level, at the level of UN, Council of Europe, and other international organizations, just to make sure that our respective authoritarian kind of disinformation narratives are took into consideration when developing different guidelines, protocols on how actually these all different legislative pieces will actually work in practice. So yeah, thanks again, and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Bojana. We have maybe I would like to invite Mr. Fitingashi, who is a representative of Spunker from Kosovo, a leading media outlet that deals with both societal issues, but is also part of our project. Pardon? Oh, sorry. There's some sort of... Mr. Gashi will present the direct experience from the ground and the insight of Spunker, which is part of Western Balkans Anti-Disinformation Hub program. Please, Mr. Gashi. He will speak in Albanian, so if you...
Thank you, Philip. It's my pleasure to be again here. So with your permission, if I can continue in Albanian. So a lot of... shumë gjërave që u përmendën nga Filipi sa i përket projektit të cilën është pjesë edhe zbunkerim, kujtohet kur para 2 vitesh filluam zbatimin e këtij projekti, ishin metoda tjera ose mënyra tjera se si shpërndahen dezinformatat dhe që nga ajo kohë është se ka ndryshuar shumë çka sa i përket prodhimit të lajmeve, por sa i përket mënyrave përmes të cilave synohet të shpërndahet ose të përçohet informacione që shumë shpesh është manipulativ dhe përdoren në pajisje të ndryshme për ta deformuar informatën dhe për ta manipuluar një informacion i cili do duhet të ishte i saktë. Sa i përket inteligjencës artificiale, Kosova sigurisht se nuk bën përjashtim, po ashtu ka një ndikim të madh pse ende në fillimet e saj. Ne si bunker kemi monitoruar dhe gjatë punës sonë po ashtu kemi hasur në video manipulative të cilat janë krijuar përmes inteligjencës artificiale dhe zakonisht raste të tilla ka pasur kur në momentume të caktuar që kanë qenë të rëndësishme edhe ku interesimi i publikut ka qenë shumë i madh sa i përket të marrjes së informacioneve lidhur me zhvillimet që kanë ndodhur. Për të më pak kontekst, dihet se burimi kryesor i dezinformatave ose edhe informatave që vijnë është ndërlidhen me raportet mes Kosovës dhe Serbisë, pra raportet e pasgjidhura, edhe fokusi kryesor është në një pjesë të caktuar të Kosovës, pra në verën e Kosovës dhe për të ndërlidhur me këtë gjatë kësaj periudhe kemi parë që kanë qarkulluar shumë informacione dhe shumë informata të rrejshme që për qëllim kanë pasur prezantimin e një realiteti më ndryshe në atë pjesë. Për ta sjellë një shembull konkret që po ashtu disa prej tyre i përmendi edhe Filipin, ndërkaq sa i përket Kosovës, ndoshta rasti më i madh ose kryesori ka qenë në kohën e tensioneve që i kishim gjatë qershorit të këtij viti, ku gjatë asaj periudhe pati edhe vite që qarkulluan pra video manipulative. Rasti më i madh që thash është një audio inqizim i publikuar në qershor, ku pretendohet të këndodhe një bisedë mes kryeministit të Kosovës Albin Kurti dhe ambasadorit të SHBA-s në Kosovë Jeffrey Ovenier ku flitet për verjen. Pra
Just a short interruption.
Mjedhes. Po, kjo është shembulli që kemi sjellë që ka të bëjë me një audio inqizim i cili është publikuar kryesisht në media serbe, kryesisht në mediat lokale në veri të Kosovës, por edhe në mediat që konsiderohen pro pushtetit në Serbi. Pra, biseda publikuar në kohën kur Kosova ose kryetarët e zgjedhjes shqiptare në 4 komunat veriore, të cilat zgjedhjet siç dihet u boikotuan nga serbët, u vendosën dhe pati tensione të shumta ku pati edhe përleshje mes protestuesve të dhënshëm dhe pjesëtarët të KFOR-it të policisë së Kosovës, po ashtu pati edhe sulme ndaj gazetarëve. Në këtë bisedë, e cila ishte shpërndarë le të themi në 10 rrjete sociale, po ashtu edhe në media serbe, pretendohet të ketë qenë një bisedë mes kryeministrit Kurti dhe Ovenierit, ku Kurti thot ambasadorët e Ovenierit se ne do t'i arrestojmë të gjithë serbët, pa marrë parasysh nëse ata janë fajtor apo jo. Pra, në këtë audio është marrë zëri Albin Kurtit dhe zëri ambasadorit të SHBA-s dhe për qytetarët e Kosovës azëm ku në atë kohë ka qenë interesimi shumë i madh për të konsumuar lajme dhe kur pothuajse çdo ditë ka qenë prezent në media kryeministri Kurti, po ashtu edhe ambasadori amerikan, sigurisht se ka shkaktuar shqetësim, megjithatë ka pasur një reagim të shpejtë, qoftë nga mediat që merren me verifikimin e fakteve sikur të zbunker, po ashtu edhe nga vetë ambasada dhe nga qeveria që e kanë demantuar një lajm të tillë. Mirë pa e ka vazhduar të qarkulloj kryesisht në rrjetet sociale në Facebook dhe në Twitter, tani platforma X, po ashtu edhe në mediat në Serbi, ku është krijuar ai narracioni që ka një politikë, le të themi kështu, zyrtare të qeverisë së Kosovës, e cila si qëllim final e ka dëbimin e serbëve nga Kosova. Ky rast, por edhe të tjera që kanë pasuar, dëshmojnë atë që pra është duke punuar vazhdimisht, ka mediume të caktuara, ka individ të caktuar të cilët tentojnë që përmes përdorimit të inteligjencës artificiale të krijojnë lajme të tilla ku prezantohet një realitet ndryshe në verën e Kosovës. Nuk është ky rasti vetëm që ka pasur veprime të tilla sa i përket dezinformacijës, janë disa raste të tjera, mirë po të ndalen pak tek që ndërlidhen me këtë video, pra këtë audio inqizim të cilën e kemi publikuar dhe kemi demaskuar edhe ne si zbunker. Dihet se sulmi më pa precedent në Kosovë ndodhi më 24 shtator të këtij viti dhe nuk është i rastishëm. Pra aty ka paraprit një fushat e madhe dezinformuese dhe pikërisht kanë qenë Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës, kujtohet vitin e kaluar kur qeveria tentonte të zbatonte disa vendime në atë pjesë që kanë të bëjnë me targat e automjeteve, konvertimin e targave dhe dokumentet personale dhe pikërisht për shkak të fushatave të tilla dezinformuese, pati kërkesë nga ana tyre që qeveria e Kosovës ta shtyjë zbatimin e këtyre vendimeve. Megjithatë, pika kthesës është bojkotimi zgjedhje dhe dalja e serbëve nga institucionet e Kosovës, ku ka pasur pas këtij akti ka pasur pra edhe publikime të lajmeve të shumta kryesisht nga mediat kryesore në Serbi, të cilat kanë shtrirje edhe në verën e Kosovës. Duhet të them fatkeqësisht se media shqiptare nuk është se kanë arritur shumë të kenë ndikim ose të kenë shtrirje në 4 komunat veriore që popullohen me shumicë serbe dhe qëllimi kryesor i tyre ka qenë krijimi i narracionit që ka një politikë antiserbe, që serbët janë të padëshirueshëm në Kosovë edhe që qëllimi final i tyre është dëbimi nga Kosova. Dhe pikërisht ky narracion është përdorur edhe nga organizatorët e sulmit në 24 shtator, të cilin veçse e ka pranuar ish nënkryetari i listës serbe Milorad Radojčić, që ne jemi organizuar vetë serbët e Kosovës për shkak të kinse përsekutimit që po bën qeveria edhe policia e Kosovës. Kuptojmë, është e vërtetë se ka pasur arrestime të personave të serbëve në veri të Kosovës, por sipas organeve të drejtësisë, ato më shumë të lidhen me veprat e tyre kriminale. Pra, të cilët proceset të cilat aktualisht janë duke u zhvilluar dhe nuk dihet ende epilogu i tyre. Po pa përfunduar ky epilog kemi pasur narracione të tilla që si dihet kulmuan mas sulmit terrorist në 24 shtator, e ku ende ekziston frika edhe ende ka lajme të tilla pra që provohen e që tentojnë të krijojnë një narrativ të tillë ku thuhet se ka një politikë pra të qeverisë kundër serbëve të Kosovës dhe që serbët duhet të vetë organizohen dhe që në forme ta ftojnë edhe Serbinë që t'i mbrojë serbët dhe pastaj kemi parë edhe veprime politike që ka pasur që vetëm pas intervenimit të ndërkombëtarëve këforit dhe thirrjeve të Bashkimit Evropian, Shteteve të Bashkuara që të shtensjonohet situata për shkak se pas asaj periudhe pam që ka pasur lëvizje të ushtrisë rreth kufirit me Kosovën, ushtrisë së Serbisë dhe edhe gjatë kësaj kohe ka pasur lajme të tilla që po përgatitet një luftë ose janë krijuar përmes dezinformatave narracione të tilla që ndoshta Kosova dhe Serbia mund të hyjnë në një luftë tjetër. Shkojmë pak shkurtimisht edhe me disa shembuj të tjerë. Kjo është një video tjetër, Filipe përmendi rastin e Elon Musk ku ka pasur video që janë importuar, ku ai është prezantuar si bosnjak apo si serb. Po është raste të tilla ka pasur edhe tek ne në Kosovë, tek mediat në Kosovë, por edhe në Shqipëri ku është një video e cila qarkullon në YouTube, sipas së cilës Elon Musk ka prioridhe shqiptare. Pra ai përmes zërit të manipuluar ai flet shqip dhe po ashtu tregon se ka prioridhen e tij nga një rajon jugor i Shqipërisë dhe që është e vërteta ka edhe shumë komente në këtë video ku shumë për njerëzve përgëzojnë Elon Musk që e ka pranuar prioridhen e tij shqiptare edhe që është mirë që po flet shqip sa bukur e flet gjuhën shqipe, gjëra të tilla, por kjo dihet që ka qenë një video manipuluese e cila është bërë përmes inteligjencës artificiale, por që vazhdon të qarkullojë dhe para se të vija këtu poshtë e shikohen edhe poshtë se ende kishte komente që flisnin për këtë video. Po ashtu ky është një rast tjetër ku ka shumë video, shumë lajme të cilat publikohen në mbështetje të kryeministrit aktual Kurti, i cili po ashtu në disa raste është kritikuar edhe qeveria që vëllai për shkak të mos transparencës që ka krijuar këtë hapësirën për krijimin e lajmeve të rrajshme dhe kjo është një video ku ai prezantohet si emri i tij pra është vendosur në një kompani ajrore, por që ka qenë pra është një lajm i cili është krijuar përmes programeve ose aplikacioneve për deepfake. Edhe ky është rasti i fundit, ka qenë një rast i ndjeshëm i cili ka ndodhur para disa ditësh në Kosovë, në një rast që fillimisht u raportua si grabitje, por që doli të ketë qenë një sulm në inskenim ose një sulm i organizuar i vrasjes së gruas, pra vrasjen e saj dyshohet se ka organizuar bashkëshorti i saj. Kjo grua rrugës duke shkuar për në shtëpi bashkë me bashkëshorten e saj nga persona të cilët sipas hetimeve fillestare janë kontraktuar nga bashkëshorti, është vrarë në prezencën e fëmijëve të saj, por ka qenë një rast shumë i ndjeshëm edhe shumë media kanë përdorur këtë rast për të gjeneruar le të themi klikime edhe vizita sa më shumë në portale kryesisht edhe në media online dhe po ashtu ka qarkulluar edhe një video me zë të manipuluar të saj, ka marrë një video diku nga një ndaj private e saj, edhe është prezantuar si diçka ku ajo kinse flet për vdekjen e saj në mënyrë emocionale edhe ku sigurisht se kjo ka pasur shpërndarje të mëdha, për shkak se shumë njerëz nuk e kanë ditën se kanë identifikuar se kjo është një video manipuluese e cila është krijuar përmes inteligjencës artificiale. Këto janë kryesisht do shembull për kohë të tjera të cilat sigurisht që kanë prezencë gjithmonë veç mas në mediat online, por që sigurisht ka edhe media, sikur se ne që po tentojmë ta bëjmë punën tonë për të demaskuar sa më shumë që është e mundur, pse ndikimi i tyre sidomos inteligjencës artificiale dhe krijimi i tyre është po shkon në mënyrë rapide që ndoshta do duhet të ndryshuar çësia sa i përket luftimit të kësaj dukurie, pra shpërndarjes së informatave të rreshme përmes inteligjencës artificiale.
Thank you, Mr. Gashi. I would like to open the floor for questions from the audience. We are running a little bit late. We have one question over there. One other question. Two more here. I would ask you to limit your questions or opinions to 30 seconds so our panelists can have opportunity to respond so we can wrap up in time. So first over there.
Thank you. So I guess I have one correction first, because the third speaker mentioned things which I thought were actually not accurate. So the first thing is the AI Act doesn't add a new thing on generative AI. It was already there in 2 years back, Article 52, so it only updates. Another thing I wanted to ask was about the issue of recommender systems, because when you have deep fakes or even text or even imagery that's generated, the question then becomes, once it's posted, how it reaches people. And the amplification happens through, for example, social media. And one of the key tools is recommender systems. And DSA, for example, does have a clause on that and has, let's say, certain limitations on what happens when you're using recommendation systems based on personal data. So that's one. But there is also other EU laws. I don't know if there are similar things here which protect children specifically, and that comes from audio and visual media directives. There again, you can use other legislative tools to protect maybe parts of the society, if not the whole population from these. So the aspect of spread of information and how much recommender systems, for example, is being considered here. And the second is, are there other legislative tools that you are aware of in the Balkan context that could be used? So even if you don't have like an AI law, for example, there are other tools you could use.
Thank you. We'll collect the two questions fast, and then we'll go back to response. So one is about other tools that can be used in the Balkan context, both in the EU and other. Can you just be very brief with your questions?
The first question is for Mr. Jan Zingel. David Cameron, when attending the NATO, the OSCE conference, OPSE conference in Skopje, he left when Lavrov was speaking. However, we know that his campaign was financed by Orce Kamchev, who took money from Russia, from the Panama accounts. How do you estimate is the situation with the corruption within the European Union bodies in Brussels and in Strasbourg? Because I think there is a big Russian corruption of this, let's say, nasty money too. And so was the case with your killed journalist, and the same with the killed journalist in Bulgaria, because they were investigating the misuse of the public money in the EU, which was ending up in Russia. And the second question is for Mr. Gashi. How do you estimate the influence in the media and in the artificial intelligence, fake news in our region regarding the question of the usage of the Russian gas? As you know, our country and many countries in the region are using still using a lot of Russian gas, and we notice a lot of interference of this usage in the media, and malusage and blackmailing of the excess of the gas and everything in the public sphere. Thank you.
Thank you. Vladimir, you have one question, and we will wrap up with both answers to the question, but also as a part of our discussion where we will ask not only about the current situation and the threats, but possible solutions offered by our speakers. Please,
yes,
Vladimir, brief.
I have a question for Bojana. I was told she's still online. So our colleagues, fact checkers from Serbia, lost their ability to boost their content on the social media. So that was taken away from them, and we were told that, and they were told that the reason is because of the elections. So I was just wondering, are there any laws in the European Union or any regulations that allow or force the platforms to do something like this during the election period? I guess, so in all the countries where there are elections, there are laws that do not allow foreigners, for example, to buy ads during election period. So, and they had to pull a lot of strings to regain their ability to boost their posts, which is very important for fact checkers during election period. So I guess my question is, what are the obligations of the platforms during the election period regarding this? Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask Bojana to respond, then Jan, then Fitim, to your questions, and also to my question. What do you think? What would you recommend to the countries in the Balkans, or the societies or specific groups, to do in this upcoming period, especially when we consider that we have coming elections in some of the countries, and especially because we also have this period of election silence or moratorium, where there is a limited ability for public communication by certain actors, while the social networks are Wild West, as it was shown in Slovakia example. So what would you recommend that we do to prepare for such misuse of AI, but also general disinformation threats? Please, Bojan.
Yeah, thanks so much for the questions, especially those that refer to my favorite topic, which is shadow banning and content automatic recommender systems, which is actually what is allowed to be boosted or not, under which conditions, and so on. Just to kind of briefly respond to this beautiful question. I'm now even more sorry that I'm not here, so we can continue this. So we would have the opportunity to continue the discussion after the panel. But for sure, the person who asked or who had the first comment about the upcoming regulation, maybe you should approach him and continue this conversation. He seems to be very knowledgeable about these things, and this is beautiful. This is exactly where my recommendation for thinking about ways forward when it comes to this topic would kind of nest is actually in the idea or in the kind of appeal or request or gentle reminder to all of us that we need to update our knowledge on these things, that we need to be able to not only grasp the complexities at the regulatory level, but as much as we do understand them at the, so to say, field level, as we heard from my previous speakers, like how the things are actually, like we know how to monitor, we know how to conceptualize things, we know how to basically map all these different ecologies and the way they're interconnected, and how the foreign influence or non-foreign influence or domestic influence of this or that kind is kind of changing the way we communicate, the way we share public information, the way the media do their job, the way their fact checkers do their job, right? But we seem to be lacking all the time this kind of in parallel understanding of the role and responsibilities of social media, and then how we can actually collaborate and cooperate with them. So I hope the next year we'll actually bring social media representatives to this conference so that we can actually talk to them about how to help fact checkers that are, as the speaker from the audience said, pull the strings to kind of make sure that they are able to boost their content. To respond to the question directly, do you like, there is a letter, there are like so there are not directly provisions on electoral process, which are kind of then separately regulated in this political micro targeting regulation that I mentioned at the end of my introduction. But for sure, those risks, those systemic risks that are defined under in the DSA could actually potentially be also applicable to this situation, to the situation of electoral information integrity. But this is all still in making, right? So the DSA has actually been kind of started being implemented really, really recently. By February 2024, countries have to put, EU countries have to establish these digital coordinators, right? So all this to say that like there are no like you would expect to have in many countries, like all the like different set of rules that the platforms or whoever need to kind of obey or adhere to with during the electoral process to ensure the kind of the information circulation and so on. These are still processes that the provisions are still in the process of becoming. And how they will turn out to be in our region depends on us. All of us. And this is not only the kind of a concern of fact checkers when it comes to automated recommender systems and boosting content and being visible online. The same concerns are shared by a number of media outlets. And I guess what is missing in this whole field where we monitor and constantly, and rightly so, try to make the sense of this huge circulation of information, we are kind of missing the point of like this dissemination part, of the circulation part. We actually know maybe a few things about, or seemingly more and more things about how the disinformation spreads, but we seem to know less about how it does. Some certain other information do not spread, like the one that you said, the content from the fact checkers, how were they prohibited and what was the consequence of this kind of inability to spread the content. So I would maybe encourage looking into this particular aspect of automated recommender systems, content circulation and media diversity component as in parallel to what we are already doing when we analyze this information and online hate ecologies and so on. So I hope to help with this response. And yes, if anyone has any other question, please get my contact from Philip and I will be happy to engage with you. And thanks for having me once again.
Thank you, Bojana. Jan, please.
Yes, thank you. To Chris's question, the spread was stopped based on the Slovak regulation. And by we have a specific council. If you translate it into English, it's Council for Media Services, which has authority on a domestic level to block some of the content and also to some of the providers on the social platforms. So they intervened and relatively quickly, and with the help of course with the help of platforms. About the question about the corruption, well, there is a corruption everywhere, including the EU. What you describe is kind of what we call strategic corruption, which is being used by Russia and also other actors to influence the decision making in certain institutions that are not immune to this corruption. Unfortunately, it is the case, and there needs to be more stricter mechanisms put into the place in the institutions, also in EU countries and also countries that are aspiring to become members of the European Union. And to Philip's question concerning what to do here in the Balkans? Well, I think this is exactly the job or a field for organizations like yours and the networks that you have built in the region to share the experience about the way how these fake deep fakes or AI generated contents are used, but also then the proliferation of these narratives and disinformations, because we also did research here about disinformation in the Western Balkans and with a different project in the South Caucasus. And we saw that actually the narratives being used in Georgia are very similar to those that are being used here in the Western Balkans. So many of those narratives are really similar. Maybe they have some kind of a specific regional twist, but those main narratives are the same. I'm not sure about the legislation here in North Macedonia concerning the moratorium, the election moratorium, whether the civil society can debunk openly this kind of, for example, fake news and quickly come to assistance to the state institutions which are supposed to kind of regulate spread of these fakes that are violating the pre-election campaign, pre-election moratorium. Yeah, but the way how to cope is the cooperation among other institutions and our organizations within the Balkans and sharing the knowledge.
Thank you. Just a brief intervention. Metamorphosis Foundation is a co-founder or co-signatory of the Code of Conduct for Online Activity during the elections, which was also initiated by the regulatory body OSCE and supported by professional media organizations, which also include stress on fact-checking. But given this context, we will have to check with the State Regulatory Commission on how they will interpret all different actions during this electoral period, because it is really every time we have elections, the media have to deal with these provisions of electoral moratorium all over, because there is no established specific rules about how to do. Sometimes the NGOs are deciding to err on the side of caution, so they don't publish anything during the electoral period, just not to be misconstrued as breaking the electoral silence. So please, Mr. Gash, concluding remarks and response.
Faleminderit sa i përket Kosovës. Kosova është në fazën e hershme sa i përket ndryshimeve ligjore që ndërlidhen edhe me transformimin digjital. Ajo çfarë kemi parë është se është një treg, le të themi kështu, kaotik shpesh për shkak të mediave online. Pra janë dy institucione të cilat merren me që rregullojnë të mediat audiovizive, televizionet, radiot, po ashtu edhe mediat e shkruara të cilave u dihet pronësia, por problemi është se ka shumë janë krijuar shumë media online të cilat nuk u dihet pronësia. Dhe kjo zakonisht ndodh gjatë periudhës së zgjedhjeve. Pra kur ka zgjedhje zakonisht hapen mediumet të tilla online që kanë shirje kryesisht në Kosovë në Facebook, për shkak se Facebooku është platforma që përdoret më së shumti nga qytetarët dhe qëllimi i tyre është të prodhojnë sa më shumë dezinformata në mënyrë për ta ndryshuar perceptimin e publikut për një parti të caktuar. Ne kemi pasur zgjedhjet në vitin 2021, mirë po ka ende dezinformata që janë prodhuar në atë kohë dhe që vazhdojnë të qarkullojnë ende, por që për shkak të mungesës së këtyre institucioneve të cilat do duhet të merreshin me to, pra kanë mbetur aty. Edhe një gjë mirë është se është kontraktimi pra Facebooku që bën palëve të treta për të verifikuar, pra që kontraktojnë organizata që i bëjnë verifikimin e lajmeve. Kosova është një organizatë e tillë e cila bën verifikimin e lajmeve dhe kur hasën lajme të rrezikshme, pastaj në bazë të atyre procedurave që ndiqen në Facebooku i mbyll. Vetëm për ta përmendur, në mars të vitit 2020 Facebooku i ka hequr nga platformat e sot rreth 212 faqe, pra që kanë qenë grupe dhe llogaritë të krijuara që kryesisht për qëllim kanë pasur shpërndarjen e lajmeve të rrezikshme. U përmend për punën, nëse mund të përgjigjem shkurt ndikimit të rrës sa i përket gazit rrës. Fatmirësisht Kosova nuk është e varur prej gazit rrës, por ka mënyra tjera përmes të cilave shteti rrës të ndikojë tasëm kur vjen puna te Kosova. Që prej nisjes së agresionit në shkurt të vitit 2021 ka pasur vazhdimisht lajme të rrezikshme ku është pretenduar se ka mercenarë të cilët po po përgatiten në Kosovë për të luftuar për krah Ukrainës. Atje poshtë janë tërhequr edhe paralele mes rajoneve të aneksuara të Ukrainës dhe Kosovës që siç dihet zyrtarët më të lartë rrësishin nga Putinë të tjerë në disa raste e kanë përmendur edhe shembullin e Kosovës, duke tentuar që ta në formë ta përligjin, ta legalizojnë aktin e tyre në Ukrainë. Ka pasur çuname të tilla që, siç e thash më herët, fokusi i tyre ka qenë tek një pjesë e caktuar e popullsisë në Kosovë, pra u konfirmua edhe sfundi pati deklarata edhe nga Bashkimi Evropian, por edhe nga presidenti i Ukrainës Zelenski që ka Rusia ka një synim që të nxjisë tensionet e reja në Ballkan, ku specifikisht e përmendë Kosovën, e kjo kryesisht tentohet të bëhet përmes dezinformatave dhe lajmeve të rrezikshme, të cilat i servohen kryesisht publikut lokal i cili popullohet, siç e thash, me shumicë serbe në 4 komunat veriore të Kosovës. Prandaj kur jemi të kjo duhet që institucionet të arrisin pikë e parë transparencën, pastaj edhe bashkëpunimin me organizatat e shoqërisë civile dhe me aktorë të tjerë në mënyrë që të luftohen në mënyrë sa më efikase dezinformatat, veçmas lajme të rrezikshme të cilat vijnë nga aktorë të jashtëm e që tentojnë të ndikojnë në Kosovë, por edhe në rajonin e Ballkanit perëndimor në përgjithësi.
On behalf of Metamorphosis and the organizers, I would like to thank the speakers, and we will continue the conversation together, online, offline. But I will now like to ask Mila and Bardel to proceed with the next session. Thank you so much, Bojana, Fitim, Jan, and thank the audience for the participation.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the day.
Thank you, everyone, for your attention. I would just kindly like to ask the Executive Director of Metamorphosis Foundation, Bardel Yashari, to join us here on stage to wrap up the conference. Ima Bežić na mikrofon. Pa? Pa, evo ga.
Podobno je stojem. Može?
Može, ako se spravo.
I will not take too much of your time before lunch, and I will not try to make a general conclusion about the whole conference, especially going through the different sessions. I just make some points that I believe are very important and are some kind of takeaways from the conference. And the first is that when speaking about artificial intelligence, we notice that there is no concrete definition of what AI is, although there are many definitions, but we understand it's a very complex term, and it becomes even more complex and increasingly more difficult for us to translate different other terms deriving from artificial intelligence into our local languages. And this makes the entire discussion about AI even more difficult. The second part is related to technophobia. We do not want to speak about AI or about any other technology as it is something dangerous and harmful. We don't want to spread technophobia. What we want is to be responsible about it, to be responsible about how we develop it, how we deploy it, and how we use it. And this is something that we as an organization is trying to do from our establishment in 2004. The third takeaway is related to transparency. And it was mentioned several times that transparency is required, and it is required on many levels. So the first level is, of course, related to the transparency of algorithms used by different AI tools, which is a very difficult part because we have here the private sector and copyrights and many other issues. But also, it can be also seen as transparency of the public procurement procedure when procuring AI tools. And this is also something that we should have in mind, especially civil society organizations working on transparency and especially on public procurement. The fourth takeaway is related to the session that we just heard. It's AI and disinformation. And we saw so many examples on how the usage of AI, deepfakes, and other AI tools are used not only to influence and to distort specific occurrence, but also to shape and influence elections like in Slovakia, but also in other countries. And this, of course, require a lot of work from not only from fact checkers, but all the stakeholders that somehow have anything to do in regulating AI, how it is used, and especially regulating the election process, which is very important because it's shape our future for the next, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on the country. In our case, it's 4 years. Now, coming to regulation, the AI Act was mentioned, the EU AI Act was mentioned, which is a big step forward. Of course, it's very important, but it's not something that will magically solve all our issues. It's just a beginning, and we also saw that it's far from perfect, especially when speaking about human rights. It is, of course, proclaimed as being historical, the first, although there were other attempts. For example, in the US, there was this executive order related to AI Bill of Rights, etc. But nonetheless, I believe that it's a very good framework for everyone, especially the countries that are outside the EU, to take it as a framework and to as a basis, like we did, for example, with GDPR in the past, and try to adapt our legislation so that AI is deployed and used responsibly in our country. I don't have my eyeglasses. So yeah, and the sixth point is actually it's not a point from the conference; it's an announcement. Sorry. I start from the announcement. So it's not a takeaway from the conference, it's an announcement. And the announcement is that Metamorphosis is officially announcing at this conference that we will create a coalition for responsible AI. And this coalition will bring together actors from across sectors. It will not be a coalition only of civil society organization, but we will try to bring together also experts from the academia, experts from the business sector, so that we make sure that everyone is involved in the shaping our future, because we say that AI is shaping our future. And related to this, last but not least, we know that AI is complex. What is important is that it's not AI is not about coding. It's not only about coding and algorithms. It's mostly for us, especially working in the NGO sector, about our engagement into making sure that AI is used in such a way that will not will embed all our creativity, will sparkle innovation, and it's also a matter of framing. I think it was also mentioned. It's not about will AI harm us, and how to counter this harmful effect of AI. It's making sure that AI does not harm us at all from the very beginning, and that we use it for the best, so that our creativity and our innovation, also our ethical principles, are embedded into this, let's say, future. And we are all responsible, and we should all work together in order to make it possible. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to thank all of the participants for being here and joining us in this discussion, especially the team of Metamorphosis, who has created this conference, and our media support from news agency Meta.mk, Portal, and Truth Meter. I would like to invite you to continue the discussion over a small cocktail. Thank you.